It was in the month of February. And then I was at the University Chapel in Enugu. And I had problems with that. Culturally, where I come from, in the village, they will bring out boys who smoke Igbo, drink kakai and tombo, and who talk rubbish, and who didn't go to school, to sit down to discuss the well-being of the village. But they won't allow any woman to be there. Why? I saw one Kalab. It's like she doesn't know anything. But then some of them who went to school, one Kalab is their teacher in the school. One Kalab is the head. Some of them who managed to go to secondary school, one Kalab is their teacher. Some of them who go to university, they meet in one Kalab there. In their village, their teachers are not relevant. They will bring Ndi Igbo to discuss. And that's why you don't see so much development, synchronized, symmetric development, sustained development with all the political grammar in our rural communities. Why? We have left out. So how will I convince these primitive village people that God said that is relevant and this decade will belong to her? In some churches, I don't know where we got those doctrines, that women should not minister and women should only decorate the hall and cook food during harvest time. So how will I convince them that what they hold on to is wrong? And I tried to hold conferences and seminars and ask God to help me. I was willing to be talked to as a controversial man the whole of 2010. But I was still a bit frosty about it. And January 1, 2011, the first day of this decade, 2 women were inaugurated as presidents. The president of Brazil and the president of the place where political thieves go to hide their money, in Switzerland. And the Switzerland case was unique because the vice president was a woman already. And they had to inaugurate a female president, which means both the president and the vice were women in a country where there are many men. As if God wanted to prove to me from the one of this decade that he meant business. 6 months after, in June, a woman was elected the president of the International Monetary Fund for the first time. In the month of August that year, what they call the Masters Golf Club in the US, that has been there for 84 years, and no woman is allowed to come there, opened up, and for the first time, began to admit women. And 3 years, there were 25 women heads of states around the world. And then in the second year, for the first time, the African Union allowed a woman to be their chairperson. At that point, I said, well, God is doing something new. For Africa man to allow the woman to be their leader in the whole of Africa, that was a sign. And then within Nigeria, we moved female participation in politics from 8% to about 30–36%. So the woman was being promoted without the church being conscious of what was happening. Windows were opened, doors were opened because of some of the frustrations of our daughters and our wives and our women of the past. Boxed to the corner and to the backyard by tradition, by unenlightened tradition, the women just couldn't raise their head, except a few. That decade will end this year. But I wonder how many of our women are up there. You know. For the first time in America, there was a time when women were not allowed to vote in the US. But this decade, a woman not only gave the only speech at the convention of one of the political parties, but became a candidate, a presidential candidate for America. The most powerful, apart from Britain, nation in Europe is Germany. They have had a female head of state for 12 years. She has won 3 times to be there. And in your village, a woman is not allowed to talk. Maybe one of these days, God will bring your village out of primitive mindset and allow women who are great leaders to have a say in the well-being of your village. A woman will carry you, give birth to you, nurse you, teach you how to speak Igbo, pay your school fees. And then when you learn how to sit down, he says you should not come to a meeting. Does it make sense? Okay. So women, this is the last leg of this decade. I don't know what God will say about next decade. I'm still looking into it. But one thing he has said is that the way you complete this decade, how you finish will determine your placing in the next decade. So whatever it will be, we are yet to know. Strangely, many times around this time, prophets around the world gather and they began to say what they see. And I don't see them gathering or see something coherent. Different people are seeing different things. And that's okay, because every year you see stickers. And people give their every year any name they like. But I like to hear God, to know what God is saying about a year, about a decade. That's more authentic. So, July 19 to 24, women will gather again at Gilgal. And if you're a woman, may I invite you, if you can, to be part of that gathering of God's daughters. Maybe at that gathering, he will tell us what he will want women to do and the place they will take in the next decade. Very important. July 19 to 24 of this year. Maybe the ushers may help you get a flyer. If you don't have one, you have a right to protest, and they will get one and give you. And then the final one. Something happened to me in 2013. I met a man who was part of the Azusa Street revival. He was 112 years old. When the revival, he was a youth, a teenager at that place. And then he told me what he saw. And I said, that's awesome. So maybe the power of God that you witnessed that time has sustained you. He said, I'll show you more people. So we agreed to have dinner with 2 other ladies. These ladies, one was 118 years old, one was 121 years old. I thought that they will bring 2 women that people are helping to carry out of the car and bring into the restaurant. So, and they keep the time strictly. We agreed on when we'll be at the restaurant. And so he said, we'll stand here and receive the 2 ladies. And I said to him, what if they don't come on time? He looked at me funny. I said, there's nothing like that. I forgot I was not... So, just few seconds I had, bam, bam, car doors, closed. And tiny, skinny ladies hung their handbags on their ankles of their legs. And we're moving like a sweet 16, like this. I'm coming. And he says, this is Miss So-and-so. She's 118 years old. This is Miss So-and-so. She's 121 years old. And they drove themselves to the restaurant. For a while, I froze. Lord, is it the gari and soup we eat in Nigeria that kill us before our time? Or is it a mindset problem? I didn't talk. We walked them into the restaurant and we sat down and I said to them, Ma'am, come. Where I come from, people don't live to your age. Why are you still alive? Instantaneously, they smiled and said, 100 years ago, we were at a Azusa revival. We had the prophecy that 100 years from then, there will be another revival. We don't want to die until we see it. So somebody can decide not to die until he sees the manifestation of the promise of God upon their life. I got up and shook them with 2 hands. They didn't know. They thought I was respecting them. I was tapping the grace they carry. 121 years. It's not 121 days. And they drove themselves. And I said, at 121, driving myself, that would be nice. There are people who have refused to die because of this night. They're waiting for you. And so when I came back to Nigeria, I wrote this tract. Thousands. Sent it everywhere, the whole of Africa. I translated it into French, sent it to Cameroon and the Francophone world. I translated it into Dutch, sent it to Germany and to all the German-speaking nations. Holland, where they have split languages, Belgium, and all that. And when the Igbo ministers met in Enugu, I printed 2,000 copies and sent to many of them. Nothing has pretty changed since then, except time. 7 years later. So, I brought 5,000 with me. If the ushers are here, please, ushers, help me give one to everyone. Maybe you find something in it that will start some fire within you. You will have made my day. Praise the name of the Lord. Again, thank you for being here. There's gonna be a great awakening, whether Satan likes it or not. There's gonna be a great revival in our land. I want to explain 2 things. The phrase great awakening means a season of unbroken revival for at least 20 years. Not a program. Sometimes we have a revival program for our church. That thing, I don't know what to call it. That thing is a program. When there's revival, a true revival, it can last for weeks, months, years. When it's sustained for a long time, 20 years and more, it's now called a great awakening. I have seen banners of conventions and meetings. They say a great awakening. And I said to myself, I wish they know what this thing means. A 1-week program is not a great awakening. A great awakening must be on for at least 20 years. And it must be heaven-sent revival, sustained. So what I'm seeking, what I'm crying, is not mercy drops. Mercy drops on us are falling. What I'm praying and crying for is for the showers. That's what I'm pleading for. There's gonna be a great awakening.
There's gonna be a great revival in our land. There's gonna be a great awakening. Everyone calls on Jesus' name will be saved.
Want to go?
There's gonna be a great awakening.
Yes.
There's gonna be a great revival in our land. There's gonna be a great awakening. And everyone calls on Jesus will be saved. There's gonna be a great awakening. There's gonna be a great revival in our land. There's gonna be a great awakening. And everyone calls on Jesus.
Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for tonight. Ancient of days, maker of the heavens and the earth, the owner of everything that exists, the one that created everything that was not created, the one that has no beginning and has no end, the one that knows the state of man, the one that knows who he is, the one that put his breath on man and expected man to have dominion, the one that gave birth to the church at the upper room in Jerusalem, and baptized man with fire, and baptized man with your spirit. Father, tonight in the city of Onitsha, may you tear the heavens. May you puncture the balloon. May you pour out the latter rain and the first rain and the former rain and the middle rain, all of them together on us in the name of Jesus Christ. Lord, let your angels who have been digging the wells of revival in Onitsha for a long time, fill them up tonight. Let it be that in all the marketplace, your name will be on the lips of every person. Everyone will be singing your name, like in the 70s, they say in Onitsha. It went on to the 80s as well. Lord, let it be that there shall be another outpouring in Onitsha, that those who kill in the night, that those who kidnap will be saved, that those who sell human parts will be saved, that those who deceive your name will be saved. Lord, let there be a great outpouring, that the church of today will be like the church at the upper room, to the glory of your holy name. Arise, O God! Arise! Arise like in the days of old. Show yourself a great and mighty God. Father, let your fire kiss Onitsha like it kissed Mount Carmel, and paralyze the activities of the wicked, and release strength to those who put their trust in you. Father, tonight, do what only you can do, to the glory of your holy name. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Praise the name of the Lord. My subject matter for tonight is the activation of those wells of revival that God has used many of you to dig for many, many years. But they are no longer running. That fire is no longer there anymore. It's there, but it's not strong again. We came to Onitsha to reactivate the fire of God, and then to, as it were, launch a revival revolution for the Igbo land. for the Igbo land. For the Igbo land. I began to preach in 1973. That was the first time I went out as a missionary. I went to Ekorabasi in the back of a big lorry with crayfish everywhere smelling and turning my stomach. And then I came off at Ekorabasi, joined a boat, and we paddled into the back of Bane in Ogoni, the village of the father of Ken, Sarowiwa. And I learned to speak Ogoni language and began to preach. The first time I went to Okrika, I went with a bicycle. I rode a bicycle for like an hour and got there. And that was 1973. And I saw the revival of the 70s, immediately after the Civil War. And I saw it sustained until part of the 80s. And I also saw it dissipate and became something that made me sad. I couldn't say much. The reason was why some of the very educated people who got involved in the ministry were from the West. And the reason was because while they were going to school, we were carrying things on our head and running for our dear lives as Biafrans at that time. That's why I'm begging people to don't talk about war again, because you won't like what things that will happen and what you see. Let's see how God can still help us achieve our goals and our destinies without going into full-fledged war. But if somebody forces me into it, I'll fight the person. Now, the fact that I said there should not be any war does not mean I have to swallow shit in the name of anything. No. Maybe the gospel, yes, but not politically. Yes. Peace is very good. And whatever you spend to maintain peace, no matter how expensive, it's not as expensive of what you will spend for war. So whatever you can do to make peace, make peace. Make peace. I saw the 70s revival, and it was very good. When you see a sister, you know she's a sister. When you see a brother, you know she's a brother. There was something about everyone. And we didn't care about the signpost of your church. If something is happening at St. Christopher, everybody, every church will go. Methodist people, everybody. Every born again will go there. When Riches of Christ was strong in Onitsha, everybody from every denomination, from every part of Igbo land was coming here to participate in what was going on until whatever happened, happened. You know. So at that time, we just knew ourselves as brother and brother. And if a brother was in problem, everybody would carry it. If a brother had a problem, it's a burial, it's everybody's burial. Nobody could suffer alone. And it was good. It was simple, but good. And then churches began to grow. Personal empires began to grow. And we lost the purity of the church, the simplicity with which we grew up. At that time, if you are from the East, you were the toast of the church. Because from the East, the revival started. And those who got saved in the West, we knew them. When we go for meetings, we look down on the Christians from the West because we felt that their own Christianity was fake. Our own had passed through the fire of the war, and we were coming out like purified by fire. They didn't see war. So while we were fighting, sleeping by the roadside, cooking on people's compound, because we had no houses that time. They were going to school. And at that time, you didn't need any money or any visa to go to London. So they were going to London. And the flight ticket to London was 5 naira. That's why today, if you go to London, about 10% of the people who are there are Yorubas. Because you can, 5 naira, when you become pregnant, you go there and have your babies. When they had, there are families where all their children were born there. 5 naira was was fair. And it was not difficult for them to get it. It was difficult for Igbo because when we came, every money we had, we were told they were useless. Even the ones in the bank. Yes. After the Civil War, I used to carry Gary in Basin and walk 15 miles to go and sell it. So I can get money back to support my mother and my father, who was a pastor. When we came back from the war, there was nothing left. I would carry firewood on my head and walk 8 miles to Aba to sell firewood. And come back. And somebody today is who never saw anything, say he wants war. As we are coming back from the war, they will look at our sisters and our girls and some young wives, and they will say, you know, I capture you, my wife. I think it's a joke. One lanky, you know, ungodly fellow will take your sister, will take your young wife as his own wife. And you cannot talk because you've been conquered. You've been defeated. And if you look at them and talk too much, they say, enter bush, enter bush. You think it's a joke. Say, enter bush. As they enter, they will kill you. Say, Nyamani or Juku Soja. Before your very eyes, they shoot your brothers. And you can't say anything. That's why I hate beginning to see now. It reminds me of things I have forgotten. And I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. But we had a revival. We had nothing except God. Nothing. Our houses were burnt with fire. Our properties we buried in the ground. People from Akwa Ibom used juju, located where we buried those things and took them. So we didn't meet our plates, our fork and our knives. Cups gone. House gone. Wrapper gone. But we had Jesus. We had Jesus. So every corner you will see the Igbos. I don't know whether God has done us, blessing us with material resources. Because that time our heart was pure. You go to every primary school, people are singing, people are worshiping, there were crusades, and then some of the foreign evangelists were coming, and we'll be with them in the stadium, and it was hot. No CDs, there were no MP3s, but we had small recorders, just like this. And then you will go near the last speaker, like this last speaker. You will find 500 small recorders around, because nobody was recording. And then you will record it. And in every house you enter, we are playing those messages. The later part of the 70s into the 80s, Lazarus and Emma formed the Voice of the Cross. And Ngozi Eguzo played the keyboard for them. Incidentally, the wife of Ngozi's younger brother, Onyemeze, is here. With ordinary keyboard, these men ruled Igbo land. Ihe rafo madu dị n'ụwa, abụ nwa Chukwu ọ gaghị emerụ m, ọ ga-ejisi m ike n'aka nke ya, n'oge niile ka ụbọchị m, enwere m enyi ka na-ebu mkpa m niile, ụlọ ndị anya karịa kpakpando, mara na nka bụ oge ihe mere nke m ji na-eche. And we sang it and we meant it. Ihe rafu mmadụ dị n'ụwa, ma abụ nwa Chukwu ọ gaghị emerụ m. We meant it. Every believer was a believer. We were pure. That was revival. Almost everybody you saw had a pin, a Jesus saves pin, or something about the Holy Ghost or something. You know, it's not in the heart alone. We carried our shirts, tracts in our pocket. Women had tracts. You enter a bus, you get up and you give a tract. We couldn't keep what we had inside us. We shared it everywhere we go. Not today, where you have people who come to church but cannot represent God in House of Assembly, in local government area office, in the Senate in Abuja, House of Representatives. Wherever those men that represent us from the East come from, only God knows. Because you cannot pass demonic laws in Brazil. Because half of the people in the Senate are born again. And they're born again, and they're born again. In South Korea, 75% of those who are at that level of government are born again. In the police, in the army. That's why South Korea does better than North Korea. Who produce these politicians that go to Okija? Which church? Who produce these politicians that go to the graves of the dead to worship the spirit of the dead in the name of worshiping their ancestors? Who produce these politicians that won't come to church except they want to make an announcement for you to vote for them? And they won't be in church prayer meeting, they won't be in church Bible study, they won't be in a church program. They tell you they're busy. And meanwhile, they're not doing. They have one wife in Onitsha and they have 5 in Abuja. Who produced them? Everything against God, everything ungodly, everything against the citizens of Nigeria, every law that comes from the coven of darkness is passed. Once you put money in a carton, Satan brings them, give them, and they will sit down, keep quiet, and sell you and sell your country. We had a revival. We did. And I miss it. I miss it. So we came to Onitsha to strike a match. That match, like you strike matches, strike it again to spark off that revival that broke out in Onitsha. And tapes were being produced from Onitsha and sent to Enugu, sent everywhere. Yes. There were no CDs then, no MP3, no cell phone. The Onitsha was sending out tapes. Of course, over 400 years ago, the gospel sparked off from here. The Igbo Bible we have was translated here with the help of Sierra Leonean former slaves who come from here, sent to America. The gospel of education